So, Maria, this is a ticking time bomb for the country and politically. Look, if you look at who voted for Mondami in New York City like a communist, okay, it is white-collar people with four-year degrees that aren't having the success they feel like they deserve. So when these white-collar workers, a lot of them may have been Trump supporters, but when hard times fall on them, they're going to vote for whoever promises to help them. So what can this administration do? They could stop H-1B visas immediately. You could put on an immigration moratorium for foreign workers, legal immigration in addition to illegal immigration, right? You could put a temporary pause on that, because if it creates a labor shortage, as the doomers predict, if they do that, it's very easy to reverse very quickly. And also, given what it's going to do to entry-level jobs, there should be no reason for a foreign student visa in this country outside of a special situation in athletics, all right? You can dramatically benefit the country with the few strokes of the pen from this administration. And if you're wrong, these are easy to reverse course, because look at what the Democrats did in Virginia. This is a state that was Republican House, Republican legislature, Republican governor a very short time ago, has now gone full commie. A Republican will never hold statewide office with the changes that they've made in Virginia, and they're redistricting it to 10-1. Like, this is, as soon as they get power, they will destroy this country, and that's the real risk of this.
Unbelievable. I mean, we are looking at a fundamental change in the way things are done, and that does require fundamental changes in policy. So we're going to keep talking about that this morning. We're just getting started this morning. Mike, what do you want to say about this AI disruption fear that is dominating the conversation in the markets right now?
You know, I think it has to be more than that, right? So first of all, software is trading at half the multiple it was just a few months ago. It's at the lowest forward revenue sales multiple, 3 times forward revenue, historically been 6 or above. Okay, so it's been cut in half. And so if AI is going to take out all of these other companies, there needs to be offsetting trades, right? So why isn't NVIDIA or Marvell or Broadcom or CoreWeave or the hyperscalers or any of them hitting 52-week highs as everything else is getting destroyed? I think this is a sell first, ask questions later, with the liquidity drying up in the backdrop, because you should see, if all these companies are getting crushed, there has to be winners. They can't all be losers. So I think there's a little more at play here. What do you think?
That sneakers on my phone. It is constantly listening to me.
Oh, it's the surveillance we have around us. It's everywhere. And like, look,
that's so unnerving.
But this trial, it's attacking the algorithm. And you got to remember, the algorithm for YouTube, for Instagram, for Facebook, for all these social media, it's designed to entice you. And that's how they sell it to advertisers. So they're in a particular, this is the attorney that brought this case is particularly brilliant, because you on one hand, they're saying, oh, it's not addictive. And then in all their investor presentations, they're like, well, look at how long we got people to stay on the platform. And, you know, you can get a jury to agree to anything. And I think the ultimate resolution of this trial is going to come down to the jury. But these lawsuits are not going to stop, in that there are perverse effects from spending too much time on these platforms, especially for the younger brains. And so this could end up being tobacco-style class action lawsuits for all of these companies. The difference now is these are all $2, $3, $4, $5 trillion companies. So for them to write these checks, it's not as big a deal for the stock price.
So I was going to say, so from an investment standpoint, with the lawsuits coming that you're expecting, do you want to avoid any of them? You just said no.
No.
Okay.
No. They have enough money. And like, it's really stupid of these companies to let these go to trial and not settle these ahead of time.
All right, let's take a short break. By the way, I want to talk with you about Anthropic in the word on Wall Street. That's coming up. In the meanwhile, Anthropic is in a big fight with the Pentagon. And I want to get your take on that in terms of, I mean, they're a government contractor, but they're telling government, we want you to use Claude, but not if it has anything to do with surveillance. And not, here it is, the feud between the Pentagon and Anthropic escalated. Cheryl reported this a moment ago. It's regarding Claude, the only large language model that can be used in classified settings. The Pentagon might ask government contractors to certify that they don't use Claude, which would be a huge blow to Anthropic. They don't want their technology used for domestic surveillance. A defense official says rivals OpenAI, Google, and xAI have agreed their models can be used for lawful use cases, Mike?
So, look, it's hard to overstate how big a deal this is. So Anthropic, OpenAI are the two fastest growing companies in human history when you look at it from a revenue and user standpoint. And a lot of the people writing the code, and you could see with the CEO of Anthropic going up, are very hard left Democrats. And the hard left Democrats now are very different than 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Keep in mind, over 6 in 10 Democrats view socialism as favorably, right? And over 3 out of 10 Democrats are avowed socialists. So you have a real issue here when you're trying to run a government and the AI models are written with code that fundamentally think the United States is an unjust country. So this is a real problem, and you should not be using any technology from a government standpoint and how they are getting government contracts when they view this way and there's these written code. And remember, Gemini, when it came out 24 months ago, it fell flat in its face because of how insanely left the underlying code is. And it's like, look, this is a product. These are all products of Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley, where they elect Democrats over and over and over, and when they implement the policies, like all the wealthiest ones leave the state. So like these are some of the most consequential companies in the history of time.
You're right.
And they have this hard left underpinning. This is a real issue, and you could go to Elon Musk's Twitter feed to see a post from yesterday where he talks about, is the U.S. on stolen land? The answer you get from Grok, from Claude, from Gemini, and from ChatGPT, and only XAI, Elon says no. Like, we are not on stolen land, because every human
Grok
being
says the U.S. is not on stolen land. What did the other ones say?
Oh, well, they say we are. They say the simple answer is yes, but like they all ignore the fact that every single piece of land has at one point changed hands over the course of human history. So everyone's on stolen land, and it's an oversimplification. It is the current thing. It's the leftist talking point to go against any sort of immigration enforcement and kind of delegitimize anybody that argues with you. So look, this is a real problem, especially so Anthropic's revenue last year was $5 billion. It's going to be 150 by 2029, where ChatGPT is going from 20 to 200 in the same time frame. Like, this is mind-boggling numbers, and that's amongst the competition of Facebook's got Llama, Google has Gemini, and XAI is out there. Like, so this is big business.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I was at the inauguration, the whole inauguration weekend, and there were all Silicon Valley executives around President Trump. And I was expecting that the Silicon Valley has pivoted to wrap themselves with the American flag and not be globalists anymore. This story tells differently. This story says a different story. That Anthropic is pushing back against the Trump agenda.
And look, you gotta understand with today's left, the issue is never the issue. The issue is the revolution, and they're gonna push it in all ways, all the time.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
you got to get Anthropic out of the government.
You know, 100%.
Wow.
I think you're right. I think you have to watch don't talk into your phone and don't use any other services besides Elon Musk's. I get it.
Wow.
Yeah,
well,
100%.
Does that, you guys are investors, does that sway you from investing in any of these stocks?
Yeah, so I don't think you invest in the OpenAIs, like the large language models, because a lot more will come, right? But like, you can look in the benefit and like who they're spending money on.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that too, and I think that's the problem is there's so much competition right now between all of them. Again, this is why
Tobacco lawsuits.
Yeah, because the specific argument of this attorney is that the addictiveness to these platforms and what that can do to you. And it's like knowing, the tobacco companies knew that tobacco was addictive and it was harmful to you. Okay. These social media companies are sitting on the exact same information, and they can't sit out there and say, like, our platforms are not addictive, because that's what they're selling to investors. That's what they're selling to advertisers. The addictiveness of the platform, like, is the feature, not the bug for how they generate revenue. So, in every call, it's how much time do they use, like, how often is there a daily active user, and how much time do they spend on the platform? And Meta, with AI has done a fantastic job of generating content that people want to see. They're the first major adopter of it. They are doing, from a profitability standpoint, revenue standpoint, they're doing an unbelievable job of keeping people's eyes glued to Facebook, which has been around for 20 years.
Yeah.
I think it's maybe a little bit longer. The platform's been around, and you still have people, like tons of users, really addicted to it. So is the jury going to find them liable? And for this young girl who killed herself, okay, and how far is this going to spread to other cases? This is a bit of a Pandora's box. I think the key difference here is how much money these companies have, and I think if this happens, they'll start settling lawsuits a lot quicker, and I don't know why they let this get to trial.
So in other words, you think they should have settled a long time ago?
I don't think they ever should have let this get open to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and ultimately, you're.
Did you want to add anything, Mike Lee? Because I see you're here.
Well,
I have
look,
Mike Lee with me.
There's 23 states that do automatic voter registration when you get a driver's license, and 20 out of the 23 are blue states. You don't need to be a citizen. You don't even need to be here legally to get a to get a driver's license. Like, if you're not concerned with illegals voting, then why can't we prove citizenship, right? If you're saying it doesn't happen, then why can't we just write it into law?
Well, again, there's no evidence that it's happening. You're like,
no 2020
we have a
cases
solution.
were lost. The cases were never heard, Congressman.
You're like, we have a solution in search of a problem. Where is the evidence that non-citizens are voting?
The cases were never heard, Congress. The investors at the table, would you use AI in terms of investment ideas?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of coming together with research, figuring things out, I'm still unconvinced as to the predictive value. But in terms of putting things together and reducing time, I use a competitor of yours, DeepVest AI, like every day. I don't know that they're necessarily a competitor, but this is becoming a very crowded space, I think is good for the financial advisor like me, the institutional investor, the average investor, because it's really putting together information to improve your odds, because I don't think we're there yet in terms of the predictive value.
Yeah. The way I like to think about it is a lot of these tools were classically only in the range for,
California semi-truck crash. It was an illegal immigrant trucker who didn't understand the signs, and actually, unfortunately, 3 people died.
Yeah, Maria, another important point of the SAVE Act is cleaning up the voter rolls, right? They died or like moved somewhere else in the state. Like, there's a lot of excess people on the voter rolls. It is it's mandated by law. These states don't follow their law, so you need kind of like a head and shoulders type approach to this. But this, like, again, the argument from the right is that there's a lot of chicanery going around with the mail-in ballots, and if these people aren't on the voter rolls, it reduces the opportunity for something like that to happen. And to the Congress's point, if he's saying there's no evidence of illegal immigrants voting, why not put a belt and suspenders type approach to that? Like, what does he care so much about if there's no evidence of it?
And I think it was dishonest to say that just make the bill, you have a driver's license to vote, and that's it, knowing that we're seeing such abuse.
And we're seeing in blue states and cities that they're allowing non-citizens to vote in local elections. So those folks are on the voter rolls. And so the idea that the folks shouldn't be legitimately concerned